Hello, everybody on the internet and the few here in the room. My name's Pastor Aaron, and I'm happy that everyone can join us here today. I'm filling in for Mike, and it's an honor to do so. If you watched the sermon on Sunday, I gave a little bit of a hint of what we're talking about. We're going through a series on Sunday mornings right now called Lament, Thanksgiving, and Our Future Hope. But I really wanted to labor on the subject of lament because I believe it's a Christian, an art that's lost in the Christian lives. And so I talked about in the message how we are to structure our lament prayers, but I didn't really go into detail. So for the next 4 weeks, we will be going into a little bit of a deep dive on a lament prayer. So as noted in our sermon on Sunday, which was Psalm 3, the first step in a lament prayer or a lament psalm is this aspect of turning to God. Not turning to other things, but to Him. We tend to, as humans, when life gets hard, we turn to money, alcohol. We could turn to relationships or whatever you feel, whatever your vice is that you fill in that little hole that's lacking. That's what we turn to when life gets hard. But the key element of the Christian life and of a lament prayer is this aspect of turning to God with a hope that He will renew your confidence and trust in Him, but also that He will intervene into our situations, which is a beautiful thing when He does that thing. Our big idea that I boiled the whole sermon down to was to cry is human, but to lament is Christian. Although crying is a good release of emotion, it's not the same thing as lament. The reason why is because everyone can cry, but not all lament. Even though lament can be defined as a loud cry, howl, or passionate expression of grief, biblical lament is more than just sorrow or talking about your sadness or pain. Biblical lament is a prayer in pain that leads to trust. It has an end goal. You're not just sitting and wallowing in your hurt and sorrows, but you're moving forward to renewed confidence in your God, in Jesus Christ. Lament begins with an invitation to turn to God while you're in the midst of pain, not while pain is over or before pain happens, but while you're in the midst I can't speak tonight, in the midst of pain. We looked at Psalm 3 on Sunday as a lament psalm, but I said that there are more lament psalms than there are even praise psalms or anything in the Psalter. So instead of looking at Psalm 3 tonight, let's look at Psalm 77. We won't go through the whole thing, just one or two or so verses throughout it. But Psalm 77 is another lament psalm, and he says this in verses 1 and 2. I cry aloud to God, and He will hear me. In the day of my trouble, I seek the Lord. In the night, my hand is stretched out without wearying. My soul refuses to be comforted. So clearly, the psalmist here is in distress. The opening line of Psalm 77 is, I cried out to God. It doesn't get any more clear than that the psalmist is in distress. But what's a key thing that we need to pick up here is that he is not choosing to stay silent. But notice, he is not just talking or complaining or wallowing about his pain. He's crying out to God. He's turning to God. In Psalm 3, we saw David turn to God by saying, how many are my foes? How many are rising against me? But in Psalm 77, he's crying out to God. We as Christians, we need to learn to pray in pain amid the messy struggles and tough questions. To do this is an act of faith. To lament is an act of faith. However, I have found that many people are afraid of lament. Even myself, when I was learning and walking through my lament, it's not easy. It's messy. We're either afraid of it because it's too honest or it's too risky, or we just don't believe that anything we do, any amount of prayer, any amount of pleading to God would change it. God won't intervene. He won't bother. He's too busy. He doesn't love me. Nothing will change my situation. People who believe that lament's too risky or too honest or God just doesn't even care, normally stop praying. And people who stop praying normally give up. Lament directs our emotions by prayerfully vocalizing our hurt, our questions, and our doubt. As one author says, turning to prayer through lament is one of the deepest and most costly demonstrations of belief in God. Let that just weigh on you for a minute. The most costly demonstration of belief in God. We as Christians need to cry out to God in pain, not give him the silent treatment, not mince our words, not be political by hiding our true feelings. We're not to give up, but we are to keep praying. Well, in the first step, which we're talking about tonight, which is turning to God in prayer, this is the step where you will raise your concern. Now, step 1 and step 2 are meshed together. This week, we're going to talk a little about bringing your complaint, but we're going to do a deep dive on it next week. But as we can tell, some Psalms of lament start off with just crying out to God, like 77, but Psalm 3, he cries out to God by acknowledging the fact that many are rising against him. He's complaining. So they're going to be similar, but we're going to just do a deeper dive next week on what it means to complain to God and how we can do that properly. But for now, the first step is turning to God and letting him know, laying it out before him what is going out. So what should constitute our prayers of lament? What should fill our prayers of crying out to God? Well, firstly, it should be our struggles. Let's just quickly look again at Psalm 77. We'll look at Psalm 77, 2-4. In the day of my trouble, I seek the Lord. In the night, my hand is stretched out without wearying. My soul refuses to be comforted. When I remember God, I moan. When I meditate, my spirit faints. Selah. You hold my eyelids open. I am so troubled, I cannot speak. That's just the amount of grief and pain this psalmist is feeling is evident in his words. So he's crying out to God in the midst of this. But what we need to notice is that he is praying, but it's not bringing immediate comfort or resolution. And a lot of times that's what we aim for. We pray and we want it to be better right away. Some would even say that because he's feeling this way, his prayers aren't working. And maybe they would give up. But he doesn't. He still prays, even in the midst of these emotions. So what should constitute your prayer of lament is your pains or your struggles. So you're feeling abandoned. Maybe you're feeling lonely. Maybe you feel forsaken from God, or you don't even know if you can face tomorrow. Just the weight of this world is too much for you. Whatever it is, you fill in the blank. But one thing you need to remember is lament does not lead to immediate solution. It does not always bring a quick or timely answer, for grief is not tame. Lament is not a formula. Rather, it's a song that you sing, believing that one day God will answer you and restore you. Secondly, you need to pray your questions. Painful circumstances always surface big questions. So don't ignore them, but pray them. Don't just shove them down. Don't act like you're ashamed. You're not alone. You're not abnormal when big questions happen because of pain. Because even the psalmist here in the Bible, the inspired words of God, he is asking big questions. We won't go over them tonight because we keep these things short. But when this video is over, go ahead and read Psalm 77, 7-9, and just start to circle the questions that the psalmist asks. He's questioning God. He's questioning where he is. So you're not abnormal when those questions arise, but don't keep them down. Don't ignore them. Pray them to God. Tell them to God. Be open and real. And my last suggestion for you during a prayer of lament would not try to move too fast. Just sit there. Feel the pain. Feel the weight of your struggles. And just let it permeate. Because when you do this, it will cause the love of God to shine that much more beautiful in your life. We live in a McDonald's mentality. We want things and we want it now. Drive up to the drive-thru, get our food, go home, and we're full. And we tend to do that with things of spiritual matters as well. We tend to want quick fixes, but healing is slow. Lamenting is slow. Allowing God to move you to your renewed confidence is a slow process, and you want it to be. You don't want to jump too fast and say, yep, God's in control. I have it. He'll figure it all out. But in your heart, you're not truly believing that, because that's building your house on a sandy foundation and not on the solid rock of Christ Jesus. And when you do that, when life gets hard, when your eyelids are held open at night and your grief just steals your words, if your house is not built on Christ, who is the rock, but on the sandy foundation of your own strength or the strength of others, then you will crumble and you will fall. So sit there. Don't move too quick. Let God renew the confidence in you. Don't go to other things, but turn to him. So next week, we're going to do a deeper dive on the complaint psalm, how to complain to God and complain to him wholly, and how it will move you to your renewed confidence in him. At this time, in the in-person meeting, we now go over some questions, but I'll just give you a couple of those questions that maybe you can think about at home. In your own words, what makes lamenting Christian? Why does it take faith to lament? And the second one is, describe a time when you found it difficult to pray because you were suffering. What were the circumstances and reasonings for your silence to God? We have a couple more questions, and I'll post them in the comments later tonight. But for now, those are two that you can chew on. Be blessed, everyone online.